Jimin and Song Da-eun, between love and quarrel. What really lurks beneath their picture-perfect romance? The dark side of their everyday life has finally been revealed. What secrets are they hiding behind closed doors? Join us now on Red Carpet Revealed as we uncover the truth and dive deep into their shocking story. The night air in Seoul carried an uneasy chill as reporters, fans, and guests filed into the lavish hall of the Crystal Hotel. On the surface, it was just another high-profile charity gala, elegant gowns, champagne flutes, flashbulbs, but beneath the glossy exterior, whispers already lingered. Everyone knew who they had come to see. The couple. The golden pair. Jimin and Song Da-eun. They arrived late. Fashionably, it seemed. Jimin in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, Song Da-eun in a scarlet dress that clung to her like a second skin. As soon as they appeared on the crimson carpet, all eyes turned. Cameras snapped wildly, capturing every flicker of their expressions. Jimin's smile was practiced but hollow, a faint curve that never reached his eyes. Song Da-eun walked one pace behind, her gaze fixed ahead, her lips pressed tight. And yet, the crowd roared as if they were watching royalty. For months, they had been the talk of the nation. A whirlwind romance turned public spectacle. Interviews where they professed their love, posed for magazine covers with captions like "Perfect together in love" in the spotlight. They had been, in every sense, untouchable. Until tonight. As the couple moved into the hall, something strange caught the attention of those watching closely. Jimin brushed past Song Da-eun when a staff member opened the door for them, not even glancing back to see if she was following. Jaw clenched at the sight. Her fingers tightened on the clutch in her hand. A small gesture, almost invisible to anyone not paying attention, but enough to send a ripple through the air. The first crack in the porcelain mask. The evening began as planned. Speeches, auctions, laughter that sounded a little too sharp. Jimin charmed the table around him, raising his glass, laughing politely at jokes, leaning forward in mock interest at everyone else's stories. Song Da-eun, on the other hand, seemed to fade into the background, her expression icy. When they stood to greet someone at the next table, a producer, a politician perhaps, she smiled wide. Her hand slipped from Jimin's arm the second she turned away from the cameras. At 10:37 p.m., the first real sign of trouble arrived. A sharp word, muffled by the clatter of glasses, but clear enough for several nearby to hear. Song Da-eun's voice, low and tight, "Don't pretend in front of them." Jimin's reply was quieter, more venomous, "Not here." Their chairs scraped back from the table as they stood abruptly, excusing themselves. Song Da-eun's fingers dug into his sleeve for just a moment before letting go. He disappeared through a side door. She followed seconds later, her heels clicking like gunshots in the hall. Porters, emboldened, exchanged knowing glances. Several discreetly slipped from their seats, cameras in hand. It was happening. Behind that door, just past the edge of the gala, they found the couple in the hallway, half shielded by a velvet curtain. Song Da-eun stood with her back against the wall, arms crossed, eyes flashing. Jimin stood opposite her, hands shoved into his pockets, shoulders tight. "You promised me," she hissed. "You said it would be different this time." "And you promised not to embarrass me," he shot back, leaning forward. "But look at you, always picking a fight." "This isn't a fight," she spat. "This is who you are." The words hung in the air. The reporters, hidden just beyond the curtain, held their breath. The silence stretched longer than it should have before Jimin finally spoke, his voice a deadly calm. "Then leave." For a second, the possibility that she would slap him hung between them like a knife. But instead, she smiled. A cold, cutting smile that left everyone watching uneasy. She smoothed her dress, straightened her shoulders, walked back into the gala alone. Jimin stayed where he was, jaw tight, staring after her. By the time they returned to their table, 10 minutes apart, the whispers had already started. Guests leaned in to murmur behind their hands. "Happened. Did you see?" Paparazzi outside refreshed their camera batteries and called editors with urgent voices. Something had cracked, and now the world wanted to see the pieces. In the days that followed, photos began circulating online. A blurry image of Jimin at a bar downtown, hunched over a drink, Eyes shadowed. Another of Song Da-eun alone in a cafe, wearing sunglasses indoors, her phone face down on the table, her usual radiant smile replaced with a look of quiet fury. Fans flocked to social media, demanding answers. What's going on? Is it over? Hashtags began to trend, #Jimin Song breakup, #golden couple no more. At first, their management issued a terse statement. They are simply going through a difficult period, as all couples do. Please respect their privacy. The statement only fueled speculation. What were they hiding? Why the silence? Then came the leaks. A voice memo, allegedly recorded by a staff member, caught them arguing backstage at a television taping weeks earlier. "I can't do this anymore," Song Da-eun's voice trembled on the recording. "Not the person I fell in love with, and you're not the person you pretend to be," Jimin growled back. "So stop acting like the victim." The memo ended with the sound of something crashing, a chair, perhaps, and hurried footsteps fading into nothing. Fans were horrified. Supporters of each side clashed online, accusing the other of betrayal. And yet, in the middle of the chaos, the couple continued to appear together in public. At a product launch 2 weeks later, they stood side by side, smiling stiffly for cameras. But when the flashbulbs stopped, so did their smiles. Behind the scenes, they sat at opposite ends of the room, speaking only through assistants. That night, a guest at the launch reported seeing Song Da-eun slip into a car alone, her hands trembling as she clutched her phone. One evening, a paparazzo stationed outside their apartment caught a particularly harrowing scene. Song Da-eun stormed out of the building barefoot, clutching her heels in one hand. Behind her, Jimin stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. He stopped midway down the sidewalk, turned, and screamed something inaudible. He didn't move, only watched as she disappeared into the night. Still, no one knew what exactly had happened to the perfect couple. What went wrong? What dark truths lurked behind those glossy magazine covers and stage smiles? The answer, it seemed, was buried deep in the walls of their home, a home that once was a sanctuary but now resembled a battlefield. Neighbors reported hearing shouting matches at odd hours, door slamming. One claimed to have seen Jimin sleeping in his car overnight. Another said she often saw Song Da-eun sitting alone on the balcony, staring out into nothing for hours. Asked by a journalist at an airport about the rumors, Jimin merely adjusted his sunglasses and muttered, "No comment." Song Da-eun was more direct. "Stories," she said, "are not meant to be told." And yet, the world couldn't look away. Part 1 of this story ends not with a resolution but with a question, the same question that hangs in the air whenever they appear together, whenever a flashbulb catches that fleeting glance between them. How much longer can this go on? In the stillness of that question, everyone waits for the inevitable, the moment when love and quarrel finally collide, and the dark side of their everyday life is no longer hidden but fully